Welcome to Taking Care of Mom and Dad. Today we have Asoniti Foster. So thank you for coming and spending some time with us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you for having me. I am the founder and CEO of Puzzle 2020. And as a mental wellness and Alzheimer's awareness advocate, I specialize in gratitude products and services that help to reduce the risk factors of Alzheimer's while also, boosting your mental wellness. It starts there, if you ask me.
What made you want to start this business?
It's interesting. I am from San Francisco, born and raised my whole life. I go home often. In fact, now I live in both places, San Francisco and LA. I moved to LA initially to, work in the industry, and I did that. And I think for the most part, I did pretty well with it until the writer's strike. Not this last one, but the one prior to
Oh,
that.
wow.
Yes, it
What
affected.
did you do? Out of curiosity.
I was a writer. That was
What?
the ultimate goal. I worked on different sitcoms at different capacities. I did work on Will and Jada Smith's sitcom All of Us. Wrote a
Oh, I
couple.
love that. Yeah.
Thank you. Wrote a couple of episodes there. At the time, though, I was working on a Nickelodeon show called Just Jordan. The writer strike hit. It halted production. Once the writer strike ended, the show was canceled.
Yeah.
On one hand, there was some relief, for me because I had moved out here and it was nonstop work. And when you work, on set, it is sometimes 24/7. And so it was nice to kind of have a break. But at the same time, it was like, okay, I'm ready to, get back into working and
Right.
started developing my own shows. Long story short, had a great deal that slipped through my hands and it really brought me down mentally. Like I was really depressed about that, in addition to
Wow.
a bunch of other things happening in my life personally. And I received a call to help a great aunt of mine who was suffering from Alzheimer's. And the last time I saw her, I was like, Alzheimer's, she was fine the last time I saw her, which
Yeah.
is very common. Alzheimer's
Very. Yeah.
a look is more so of what they say and don't say or do. And I helped her, and the more I spent time with her, the more I kept counting the people on my family tree that I know of that had lived with and died from Alzheimer's. Both my grandmothers, other great aunts, other great uncles. Like, wait a minute. Can I get this? Can
Something's
my
going on.
yeah. Like I really enjoy spending time with her, which was also like somewhat strange because she repeated herself a million times. I don't know
Right.
how many times I answered what time it is, and it didn't bother me. And I always answered the question like it was the first time she had ever asked.
Good for you.
She was so comfortable with me, and I had known her, since I was a child, so it wasn't like this stranger relationship, right? We were very comfortable. I was her sister's great niece. So, and they all loved each other. It was about 17 of them, same mom, same dad. And researching the disease, and I've shared this on many platforms, and I will definitely share it here. There were three things that really stuck out to me. One, African American women are twice as likely than the national average to get Alzheimer's. I was like, okay, that's me.
Yeah.
Women are more likely than men to get Alzheimer's. Okay, that's me again. And a person can be on an Alzheimer's track in their 30s and not be aware of it. And that was me. And that
Wow.
last part, I really started to dive into like, what does that look like? Because most people think that, oh, this is just an old person's disease. You don't have to worry about it until you're over the age of 65. But here I am under the age of 65, and these risk factors, they pertain to me.
Right.
And so the more I kept researching it, I wanted to do something about it, know exactly what to do because I don't have any alphabets behind my name. I did not go
Yeah.
for this. In fact, this was the furthest thing from my mind. But this passion grew in me to really want to do something about it, especially the more time that I spent with my great aunt. And then I started spending time with in support groups and listening to their stories. And I really was determined, like, okay,
Yeah.
like you get to a point where you like, we're in here. What can we do? What can we
Right.
change?
Yeah.
These complaints into solutions. And so, that's when the business kind of started, wanting to be this solution-based company. Initially, we started off with the documentary because, again, that was my background. So I thought, okay, I can
Right.
take those skills and apply them. And 5, 6 years in, and the timing has come because we're interviewing neurologists, caregivers, so time is very limited for them. And wherever we can get in to grab at least 30 minutes to an hour to interview them, that has been the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the pandemic hit, and that really paused and pushed a lot of things to the side. Nonetheless, while doing the research, applying it to the documentary, I didn't want to produce another problem. Because
Hmm.
again, I pride myself on being a solution based business. That was like
Right.
foundation of it for mental health and Alzheimer's. And that's when the products came into play. Because in my research, I discovered the physical act of writing down what you're grateful for, not a texting it, not a typing it, and not just a thinking it, but the physical act of writing down what you're grateful for increases neuroplasticity. What does that
Yes.
mean? In super layman's terms, it means that you are clearing the neural pathways in your brain to think better, to process better, to help you, go to sleep, to help you.
Yes.
When you feel better, you look better. When you look better, and looking better is about getting sleep, is about exercising, is about eating right. And I'm like, okay, let me explore that. And
Mhm.
even though we were doing the documentary, my mental health was still suffering, because the pandemic hit. Um, I've had some personal trauma, heavy losses in my life. So I gave it a try. Like, okay, I don't have anything else to lose, right? This is a
Right.
pretty
Mhm.
easy concept to do. And when I did it, 30 days in, I felt like a brand new person. It,
Wow.
like, I imagine that's what it felt like to win the lotto.
Huh.
But I
Wow.
hadn't, but
Yeah.
I feel so good. And then I found myself now attracting positivity to me. The little things were making big differences where it was like, okay, this really works. How can we get this out to people? And
Mhm.
that part is where the business really started to come into play because now, in addition to this documentary, we have these products and then the services, the memory care services. I am a caregiver for my grandfather. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2020. So,
Oh,
you know, in the
got a lot
in
on your plate.
yes, my daughter and I actually travel once a month to him, and it is a 24/7 care for
Yeah.
him in his home. With the progression of it, you see uh, changes.
Yeah, it's sad. Yeah,
It
it's
is.
hard.
It really, really is. But I stay writing all the time. I mean, when
Hmm.
people talk about cup runneth over,
Yep.
definitely mine. And because I know how I feel as a caregiver and the emotional roller coaster, I wanted to be there for other people, and at the very least, just even listen to what they're going through and provide as many resources as I possibly can. And first and foremost, calm this sense of urgency down.
Yes. That's a good way to, that's like a perfect way to say it. And it amazes me that well, the way you described it, the science behind actually writing it down, a lot of people don't understand that at all. And it has a connection to our whole entire body. You in their home, it's private. You can write down anything you want to, whereas a lot of times, I'm sure you feel the same way. If a family member comes up to you and says, "How's it going?" You're gonna be like, "Fine, it's okay." You're just gonna make it sound good, right?
Yes.
So, with what you're providing, it actually enables someone to be honest with themselves, to be honest with what is actually going on. And I can't even imagine some of the stories that you probably have. Um, so, can you show us a little bit of your product?
Absolutely. So initially, we started off with a gratitude bank, and
Mhm.
this was the very first one in this color, was the frost. And of course, it has our logo on it. Here, this is meditation music accessible via QR code. You scan this and
Oh,
it'll take
wow.
you to meditation music. Because again, in my research, meditating is also a great way to help reduce the risk factors of Alzheimer's and while at the same time, mental wellness. And to me, if we can get to that part, the mental wellness, from all aspects, right? It's the sleep, the exercise, the eating right, but also the confronting the trauma, the unresolved
Yes.
trauma, recognizing it and then moving on. Someone once told me none of us are going to get out of here unscathed. you know,
True.
we all have issues, and the
Yeah.
difference between, between it actually is just confronting it and moving forward. It took me a long time to recognize that and apply that for myself. But in addition, we have our thank you card here.
Yeah.
And this comes with the pen, with the stylus,
Oh,
and
nice.
50 great blank grateful cards. And I look at these almost like you would a pill. Everybody's looking for a magic pill for
Yep.
Alzheimer's. That's another area of research that whoever is for is for. I'm not necessarily a fan of it, but this right here, like you said, is so easy. It's so simple. You take this, you write down wherever you want. My grandfather always writes on the front, which was interesting to me because my daughter and I instantly go to the back or whatever.
Yeah.
Write it down, fold it up, and put it in the slit of this lid. And you do this as often as you can. I encourage people to do it at the start of their day and possibly at the end, if nothing else. But whenever you feel most comfortable doing it, you do it. We had done so well our first year with the gratitude banks. We did come out in another color, which is our emerald. You can see that
Okay.
behind me. And we also have a male version. But we heard what our customers were saying that they wanted to, travel with it. And so that's when we came out with our gratitude, what I call gratitude attitude journal.
I love that.
Slip this sleeve off. It's a trifold. And this is what I like about
Oh,
this.
look at that.
It has
Wow.
the pen, the pad, the color tabs, the sticky notes, and again, our signature meditation music on the back. And so it's like this all in one mental wellness for you, to just write down your thoughts. Preferably to write down thoughts of positivity, thoughts of gratitude. Journaling is one thing, and I think journaling is great. Lord knows when I was younger, it was called a diary.
Right? Me too.
Yes, but for this, the exercise is really to get people to focus on writing thoughts of gratitude, so that you're always keeping something positive at the forefront of your mind to help you move through the day.
Yeah, you need
Writing
to.
thoughts of gratitude, and this is why this right here was so important to me, these
Yeah.
blank gratitude cards, because you're writing down everything positive, little things, right? Hair, teeth, grateful for, two legs, grateful for a beating
Yeah.
heart, grateful for, a warm bed to get into, the little things. And you can start to get into bigger things and even things that you want, but it's all positive. So once you complete this deck and you bank them and you put them out and store them back in this, it turns into a little keepsake that once you review it, it's all positivity pouring back into you. And we don't
Wow.
realize that everything we consume, from what we see, what we smell, what we eat, what we touch, the energy around, that is all contributing to our mental health, our mental well
Mhm.
being. So for me, it's extremely important to make sure that I'm constantly pouring positivity into every area of my
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
especially what I'm reading. That's why I'm not a fan of the news. The news is always negative. I don't want to pour that into my psyche.
I
I
don't
want
blame you. Yeah.
I definitely want to keep up with current events, but as far as like really sitting on it all day and keeping up with negativity, I don't want to do that because I realize how it affects me in addition to running the business, in addition to being a sandwich caregiver, in addition to all the heavy things I already have going on. I don't, I'm trying to keep it as positive as I possibly can.
Right. And thank you for bringing that point out. I I appreciate that. I know we did when my kids were younger, their school, we had a thing where we put a box at the bottom of the stairs where we lived. And so before they ran out for school for a couple months, they would put down what they were grateful for, and you could see them have a whole smile and a different attitude on their way out, rather than being frustrated. I find a lot of, especially in high school, it's just so difficult for a lot of our kids, and so rather than being frustrated, they had a different opinion of it as they were running out the door. But that was a long that was a long time ago. But I
Yes,
like so one of the things I was thinking is I like this for I was thinking there are people that are in facilities, communities, we call them communities, we don't call them facilities, but communities that are like assisted living or independent living. And to me, this would be a great gift for someone so that when like a family came to visit, they could write down what they were grateful for. And then that person can also read it um, while they were visiting them. Because I find a lot of times when family members are visiting other family members, they don't really know what to talk about.
absolutely. I think the other thing that I really want to stress too with our products is that they are Alzheimer's friendly, but they are not designed only for people who have Alzheimer's or caregivers. It is a great tool, for caregivers, even people who have Alzheimer's to actually do. It's a great activity. But we also have a program called TAG, Teaching All Gratitude, and it is for middle school students because at the time I was designing this and researching and figuring it all out, my daughter was in middle school during the pandemic, so we were at home losing our mind like the rest of the world.
Like everyone else.
And yes, but when I started doing it, I also had her doing it. And when I tell you her entire demeanor about school and life had changed for the better, straight A's online, and a lot of kids
Wow.
suffered online.
Yeah.
And we've had our fair share of struggling academically in person. So when I saw her with straight A's online, did I contribute her writing down what she was grateful for to part of that success?
For
Absolutely.
sure. Yeah.
Wait a second. This is also something that's great for kids. Like you also mentioned high school students. My mother is a retired teacher, and she used to say the hardest part with getting to the lesson with the kids is that she had to deal with their life first. Kids come
Mm.
in stressed, depressed, anxious, which are modifiable risk factors of Alzheimer's. And as adults, sometimes we look at it like, what are you stressing off of? You don't pay any bills. That's a real stress.
Yes.
Worry about, any food or money coming in and out the house. That's a real stress. But we've been kids before. It hasn't changed much. Maybe it's
Yeah.
gotten a little worse, in fact, because of this digital era. But when I realized that it also can work for kids, okay, we have to get into, the schools. And then, of course, it works for people who just really want to boost their overall mental wellness, people who want to increase their neuroplasticity and do a little something every single day that makes a big impact in their overall mental health and wellness. And I've noticed that I'm happier, not, and don't get it wrong, it's not like I walk around with this big smile every day because life is just so great. I still have adversity, but I'm able to handle it a lot better because, again, positivity is at the forefront of my brain. So I'm thinking, how do I solve this? Instead of, oh, this is always happening to me. We're quick to complain about a situation before we go to a solution. And for me, this helps to solve a lot of our problems. I mean, and then when I look back, I'm like, it really wasn't that serious.
Wasn't that, yeah, right?
And I just want to add this last part to this in regards to these products. There's so much, medical research behind the physical act of writing down what you're grateful for. But I want to add this touch of common sense to it. When we were in school, it was very important that you wrote down what the teacher wrote on the board. Well, why do we have to write these things down? So we can remember it. It was for our memory. So when I also talk about this is a great tool for boosting your memory, that's why. Because when you write down, it's like you're etching it in your brain. It's the thought to an activity that you're pouring back into yourself, and you'll remember that.
Yeah, it's true. And I've read somewhere actually the the writing part actually connects to the visual part. of our brain too. And that's where um, I'm not scientific, but the article I was reading, that's where the neuron, like everything just activates in your body. So you actually have to write it. Like you can't just think it, say it. I mean, you can do those things, but it's not going to have as much effect on you physically and mentally as it does if you're writing it down.
You're
So,
right.
do you have some stories that you can share?
I have one in particular that I will always remember because it really it said to me, okay, you have to keep going with it. So what's this year? Time is flying. 2024. In 2021, yes, 2021, Christmas, my grandfather was placed on hospice and um, freaked me out. You
Mhm.
know, it was a huge shock. And my cousin and I share caregiving responsibilities. So when I'm not there, my cousin is there. When I'm there, my cousin isn't. You know, it's a healthy balance. It keeps us all sane and, and wanting to keep caring for my grandfather. And I started my grandfather writing down what he was grateful for on these little cards. What took my daughter and I 5 seconds to do would take him like 5 minutes,
Right.
which was a great activity for him, right? He's focused. This is hospice. This is Alzheimer's. Of course, I'm an emotional roller coaster in there. 1 minute I'm sitting there, at the table, we're having dinner. The next minute you look at me, I'm crying because I'm like, this is what it is. Oh no. We're writing down what we're grateful for. And my cousin actually came down with COVID. So we had to stay longer. In fact, we stayed for like a month, a long 24/7.
Mm,
Th- that break, I was looking for it. I wanted it. It was, thank God my cousin and I had it, but he was sick and I didn't mind staying. We were doing what we were doing. My grandfather was comfortable. My daughter and I were good. It's time for us to switch places. My cousin is feeling better now. And I don't know, maybe 2 weeks later, it's time to switch. So we go back, and the hospice nurse says, oh, so this is our last week here. In tears. No, why? He's like,
wow, yeah.
your grandfather is doing good.
Wow.
Like, okay, yes. He said his vitals are stable, so we're reducing it to palliative care. And that was the first time I had ever even heard of palliative care. I'll share real quick the difference between that. Hospice, time, date on your death. Palliative care, we know you're gonna die soon. We just don't really have a time and a date because you're doing good. So just keep doing what you're doing. And when the wind blows and it's time for you to transition, you'll do that comfortably.
Right.
So that's what I, provide. And so I asked myself, well, what changed? How do you just go from hospice to how do you reduce that? And I know hospice can change. If they say a date, it doesn't mean exactly that date. Maybe before, maybe later. You never know. But it had changed. He said, again, well, his vital signs are steady. And so I said, okay, I didn't think about it, finished crying and then thought about everything that I incorporate with his daily living activities. And I thought, okay, he eats right. I definitely do the juicing. We do as much exercising as we possibly can. Everything is an exercising, from going to get the mail to sitting at the table to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. His hygiene is just everything to keep him well. And I thought, he's writing down what he's grateful for, you
Yeah.
know, So for me, did I look at that as this contribute to his overall care? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. That's a
And
beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. What is one thing that you would say to family members so that they would understand just to anyone actually, just how helpful and how important this is for people?
to know about caregiving, to know about the products, to know about the Alzheimer's, all of the above. I, you know, On one hand, I almost wish that they taught this in schools.
True. Yeah. True. Yeah.
At the very least, the compassion part, really understanding that sometimes the person who has been diagnosed, they may do something or say something that's completely out of character, but understand that it is the disease, you know. Try not to get as frustrated as you would with a person who didn't have it. And again, this is where writing down what you're grateful for comes into play. Whether you're using our products or you're using a pen and pad at home, just writing down what you're grateful for is such a tool and activity to help you handle being a caregiver, to process what's going on, to lessen those sense of urgencies. That's because I get it. The first time you hear that, if you're unaware of it, you don't know what to do, where to go, what this is. And the last thing you want to do is go to a site and the first thing they're asking for is a donation. You're looking for information and you don't want to be stuck trying to search for all of this stuff. Now you're not thinking straight and you're
Right.
and that energy is passed on to the person you're caring for. It just turns into this whole mess. I would say, the first thing is to really calm down. Because once you calm down and then you start seeking those resources, they start to come to you. And then it becomes easier because you're not blocking any blessings.
Right.
And I get it. That put on hospice for me, that was a sense of urgency. Oh my God, what can I do? What can I change? And then it was just like, I don't think I could change this. That was, my initial thought. But I thought, again, just kind of going back, let's just write down what we're grateful for. Yeah.
And I
And then,
think, yeah, and I think when you transfer to what you're educating all of us about, when you transfer that energy to the gratefulness part of it, then everything around you changes. So yes, you're going to be stressed. It's just the facts of life. Things are going to come. That's not going to go away. But I think with being grateful, we open up that other avenue of help. Like, and we don't realize it. What you're providing is amazing.
thank you, thank you. It's I actually, so I also do care consulting.
Oh,
And so
cool.
I am helping other families in, my position, in the position you were in, who that's where they are, right? The sense of urgency, they're looking for resources, they don't know what to do. Again, it's not like they teach this in school unless you are actively and intentionally, studying this, which most people aren't until you get it thrown into the situation. And my first thing with them is to listen, let them kind of just, in layman's terms, throw up everything that they want to say and how they're feeling, and then calm them down so that they can listen. I get it. It's frustrating, especially if you don't have the resources as far as the financial resources.
Yes.
This is a very, very expensive disease. However, when you are calm, then you can get, in my opinion, creative. You start to figure out ways to make the money work for you instead of stressing out the money not being there.
True.
And it starts to come. But if you are frantic, you'll miss those opportunities to hear what's available.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that a lot with the people that I talk with when it comes to dealing, now I'm a caregiver all of a sudden. For me, and I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing. I realize it and take it as it is. I grew up watching caregivers. So my mom
Mm.
took care of her mom who lived with and died with Alzheimer's. My grandfather took care of my grandmother, his wife, who lived with and died from Alzheimer's. I saw them taking care of. So for me, it wasn't like this sense of urgency when I got the call, literally and figuratively, to, hey, your grandfather was diagnosed,
Yeah.
can you come and help? I was on the way.
Yeah.
There wasn't a, let me figure it out. Remind you, this is in the middle of the pandemic. So my daughter and I were flying in 2020. It was like our private jet.
Wow. Yeah.
Nobody was in the air. We prayed hard. Never got COVID.
Wow. That's amazing. Grateful. That's
Yes,
gratitude.
yes,
That's
exactly, exactly. And that is exactly what I'm trying to stress to people who nobody was flying. We were, and by the grace of the Lord, we were able to get there safely, help take care of my grandfather, and just get through it. But I also had to be calm. Did stress creep up? Absolutely, because I have this teenage daughter who, what, my aging grandfather, and I'm in the middle of it all. But did the best I could every day to stay calm. And that's the most important part of all of this with being a caregiver is not to, because like you said, you don't want to transfer that negative energy onto them.
No, no, not at all. You do consultations basically for families, so we can find that on your website. On where can we people come and
Right.
contact you?
On my website at puzzled puzzled 2020, that's 2020.com. And one of the things I'm really looking at doing, because I understand how difficult it is when you just want answers and people are trying to charge you $1 million just to say hello for an hour. And even my daughter, one day I was on the phone with, a caregiver, and for like 2 hours. And my daughter's like, "Are you charging him?" And I'm like, "No, I don't know how to charge because I get
Yeah,
it." So what I realized is that, the more people that can purchase our products and support our products, people doing that will allow me to do this and provide resources for, the most part, free of charge with people. That is the goal. Depending on the circumstances and how often you may need me, there could be on a sliding scale of fee for services. But for the most part, people they're looking for resources, and I want to be able to guide you in that direction and not charge you. At the same time,
right, right.
purchasing our product, it allows me to be able to do that. So
Thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing about the gratitude box. It's a wonderful idea. And I will leave the link below so that people are able to find out more information about this.